What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now, today I've got for you a relationship story that I think the vast majority of you can probably empathize with. In fact, as I'll talk about later on in this episode, I've been in a very similar place to OP myself. So without further ado, let's get into it. Make sure to drop a like on this episode and subscribe for more content like this in the future. Here we go. I am a 23-year-old woman, and I've been in love with my best friend, who is a 21-year-old man, since I first met him. It's not going away, and I don't know how to deal with it because I have no idea if he likes me, and it's stopping me from meeting someone else. So, the original post for this one came back on March the 23rd, 2019. Honestly, this is pretty straightforward. We met about 2 years ago, and I instantly crushed on the guy. I honestly thought our first few nights out were dates, up until the point he went on a rant about a girl he had a crush on after a few beers. At that point, my thought process was pretty much, okay, no dates, got it, and moved on with the intent of friendship. Except, funny thing, it turns out he checks all my boxes. I've never gotten along with anyone this well. People are shocked to find out, or well, not anymore, but up until about a year after we became friends, that we haven't known each other for years and years. We have the same humor, we like the same games and TV shows, we agree on politics, we want the same things in life, all well enough to get along, but still with enough differences that we can have conversations about it. We discover bands together, we help each other with work and writing papers. I call him when I'm sad, and we both think it feels weird to not see each other for a week. The problem is, I'm completely head over frickin' heels in love with the man, and it's starting to get to the point where I don't know what to do. I thought it would go away, but every time I meet him, it's like I'm falling all over again. My friends have gone from teasing me about it to shooting me pitying looks whenever his name is brought up. My sister wants me to just stop seeing him. I go a week without talking to him, and I think I'm starting to get over it, but whenever I see him again, it all comes rushing back. I don't know what to do. It hurts, and it's not fun anymore. I've been on dates with some amazing guys who liked me, but my feelings for my friend is stopping me from falling for someone else. It's starting to feel pathetic, and at this point, I see no good option. He's my best friend, the best I've ever had, and I just don't want to lose him. At this point, I think asking him out would achieve that, since it's been so long since we met. I know the only way for me personally to get over someone is to stop seeing them, but I don't want to lose my best friend. Now, the finishing touch keeping me on the hook are these looks that he gives me. I've had other friends confirm he does this, because I was honestly starting to think I was losing my frickin' mind. Whenever we're out in a group, at a party or the pub, whenever I look over at him, it seems he's always looking at me. And these eye contacts last way too long to be normal, like a good 6 or 7 seconds of us just looking at each other across the table, or the room, or the bar. Now, 6 or 7 seconds doesn't sound like a long time, but if you just count 6 or 7 seconds, imagine that intense eye contact. That means something. That means you can't just be friends, at least that's what I think. And he does this little smile. I've never seen it on him in any other situation, and I don't know what it means. I've got no idea why we do this or how it came to be, but it's the final frickin' nail in this coffin of hopelessness that I'm buried in right now. I don't know if I'm crazy and overinterpreting things, which is very likely, or if I should just give it a shot and ask him out, even though it might ruin the friendship, or do I just stop seeing him, or just carry on and hope this feeling goes away at some point of the distant future. I'm so frustrated that I want to cry, and I have cried a lot. I just don't know what to do here. Okay, so there we go. That was the original post. And then, just a couple of weeks ago, at the time of recording, November the 13th, 2024, that's 5.5 years later, we got this update. So, hello. A little over 5 years ago, I made a post on this subreddit looking for advice on how to handle my incredibly painful, unrequited love for my best friend. I'd honestly forgotten about this until making a password reset on another account, and I saw this account among my email search results. But as I read through the post, I remember how very comforting and terrifying the responses to my post were, being a more or less unanimous ask him out that scared my butt to death. I'm sorry that this isn't really a happy update, but I don't know. It felt weird seeing something I wrote in what feels like a different life, and the people who responded seemed so genuinely kind and they were trying to help. I feel like I weirdly owe some kind of update. Especially for that one dear sweet commenter whose account is now deleted. I so wish I had a way to reach out to them, because that was one of the most thoughtful comments I think I've ever gotten, and I can't find it. And it's really annoying. Oh, actually, sorry, I can find it. It took me 2 seconds. It's lovely. You know what I'll do? I won't read it all because it's a very long comment. We'll just flash it up on the screen right now. If you want to pause and read this, by all means do. But I will say that OP replied to this now 6 years ago, 5.5 years ago, saying, "Thank you, this was an amazing response. I'll try to muster up the courage to start going down this path. Thank you very much for the elaborate response. Love heart." And that account has now been deleted, as OP said. Anyway, back to the update now. And just to recap with hindsight, I really was in love with this man, and I had been for about 2 years. Like full 9 yards in love, struggling to breathe when he talked about someone else, but still cheering him on because he deserved happiness levels of love. Now, if that sounds a bit like obsession to you, then that's because it probably was. The thing about unrequited love, the thing that really sucks about it, is that it's incredibly hard to move on from. But until you do move on, your brain keeps obsessing about it, to the point where it can be impossible to get anything done. It had been 2 years of that when I made that post. 2 years of pining and pain and an ever-growing pile of crushed hopes, and I think I was going a little bit insane, constantly swinging between butterflies and love highs when I was with my friend, and the crushing feeling of rejection every time he'd say goodbye, and the obsession over things like how long he'd look at me, how long he'd let a hug last, how fast he'd respond to my texts, things which could either make or break my entire day depending on what the answer was. Now, on to the actual update after that primer. About a month and a half or so after I made that post, still trying to hype myself up to actually ask this man out, I accidentally became a head organizer for an event at the university I was studying at for the moment. Long story short, the person managing me was not kind. I was extremely overworked from the event, on top of writing a thesis. I was equally stressed out in my private life due to the whole situation with my best friend, and I ended up going through a pretty severe case of burnout. Add on to everything that I developed an addiction to alcohol to try and handle everything, and I was also experiencing what was most likely a drug-induced paranoid psychosis. I was a mess. I ended up moving back in with my dad in September, and I spent about a year doing nothing but sleeping, crying, playing Skyrim, and going to rehab and therapy. The start of 2021, I went back to school, and I slowly recovered. I've been sober since 2020. The paranoia hasn't completely gone away, but it's more manageable. I used to think that my landlord listened to me through a radon measurement device, and at least that's over. Oh wow. And I think I've got a work-life balance figured out that helps me not overwork myself or go into free time lethargy because I've got too much time off. It was long and painful, but I did it. If you're wondering where my best friend was in all of this, I honestly don't know. I went back to look at our text messages, and from what I can see, he tried to call me a few times in early September. I didn't respond, and then nothing until around Christmas when he wondered if I wanted to meet up sometime. I said yes, and then never followed through. He hasn't texted me since January 4th, 2020. Now, to be clear, I don't blame him for not reaching out more. My non-responding is what killed the friendship. I know because it also killed every other friendship I had at the time. I don't know, alcohol addiction, deep depression, and crippling paranoia may be a fair explanation to one day stop responding to any of your friends, but I still deeply regret those choices. If I were to make an r/relationship post today, it would be on how the F you word an apology after behavior like that 5 years down the road. Sorry, I feel like this is starting to become a journal. I'm going to stop my reflections there. So, about my love for my best friend, with some years of hindsight and therapy behind me. I now think that I don't think I was in love with him. I think I was in love with the idea of him, and I think I was obsessed, for sure. But looking back, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think a part of me really liked the fact that this was a person who clearly wasn't interested in me. Genuinely, if he was, that would shock me to find out, because he spent 2.5 years ignoring the, in hindsight, very obvious attempts that I made to deepen the relationship. Some examples include him saying he's waiting for the right person, me responding, sometimes I feel like I already have. Do you ever feel like that? And him going, nah, I don't think so. Me following that up with, maybe you just don't know. The heart is weird sometimes. And him going, I'm pretty sure I'd know. One time we talked about why people fall in love, and I genuinely tried to convince him a deep friendship was all you needed, while he insisted that there needed to be a level of sexual attraction as well. I tried to get him to do that 36 questions that will make you fall in love thing with me. I kept trying to find excuses to hold his hand. Rest in peace, my palm reading career. You were nothing but a thinly veiled attempt at finger touching, and him resolutely never going along with it. Ditto, but with hugs, arm touching, and sitting just a little too close whenever we went out so I could hear him better, which he normally responded to by going, "We should go outside so you can hear better if it's too loud in here." Very thoughtful, but very much not what the goal was. One night, when we were alone in my apartment after a club event, after a particularly long shared look, I asked him what he was thinking about in that kind of, I don't want to break the illusion, soft voice you put on when you're really freaking close to someone you like. And his response was, "I don't know if I agree that Gertz's metaphor about blinking makes that much sense, actually." This guy, by the way, I'm sorry. And I'm not saying that I am the most clued up when it comes to trying to read signals from the opposite sex, right? Trust me, I've had my fair share of stinkers, I've been told after the event. But goodness me, this bloke is another level. For context, we had bickered about that earlier in the night, since we just read some article about it in class, but I did not expect it to make a comeback at that point. Another night when we were out together, and there had been lots of looks and closely leaned in laughing together, he pulls me to one side by the hand to talk to me about something. My heart's racing. Only to ask me if I know if one of my friends is single, because he thinks she's really freaking cute and might have been looking at him all night. Looking back, at least some of this stuff is sort of funny. I've got no idea if he knew or knows now that I was in love with him. I wouldn't be surprised if some of my old friends eventually told him, but of course he's never reached out about it. But yes, I think I kind of like the security of this person who clearly didn't like me back. Not that I was doing well with the heartache, but there's a kind of effed up comfort that comes from pining for someone who doesn't want you back. Like the highs I'd get when I got something that felt like confirmation, made up for the lows of crying in my apartment stairway when I got home after a denial. Today, I mostly just feel so bad for him and ashamed of myself, regardless of whether he knew or not, and I'm trying to cling to the fact that he seemed to at least continue wanting to be friends as some indicator that he never felt creeped out or uncomfortable. My behavior was pretty freaking creepy. And in the end, once I did get that distance between us, the feelings went away after some 6 months or so. My therapist recommended not meeting this person again for my own sake, and by early 2020, I wasn't so painfully in love anymore. A while later, I'd end up meeting a guy I clicked with just as much, who actually liked me back and showed it. We've been together for almost 3 years now, and we're talking about starting to try for kids at some point soon. He'd like us to get married first, but is also insisting he wants to be the one to propose, so I'm just walking around waiting for the day. Even if it's not a huge surprise or secret, he just wants to get that moment of going down on one knee, and who am I to deny him? I'm slowly growing old and boring. I'm sober. I go to my boring, stable, middle career 9-to-5 job. I save for my retirement and traveling in the summer. I help my dad out on his farm. I crochet little animals for my newborn niece. I come home to a man who plays his silly video games. I play my silly video games. We go for walks and to the museum and bicker about whether to get fat on takeout or not. I have some regrets about how my early 20s ended up playing out, but by God, I wouldn't want to go back. Okay, and there we go. That is the end of the story. And to be honest, yeah, great ending. Look, it's sad that you had all the stuff in the middle about, the paranoia and the addiction, etc., etc. That was very serious. And the obsession was a bit too much. I think we can say that now. But, at least that's a good ending. And you seem like, you're in a great place now with someone who does actually like you. Now, I promised you guys at the start that I would talk a little bit about my own life here. And I said that I've been in a similar situation. Now, I don't think I've been in a situation to this extent where I've become like obsessive and it's become unhealthy. That hasn't happened. But one thing that I did really sort of resonate with is the paragraph where OP says, "I think I kind of like the security of this person who clearly didn't like me back." Now, let me know in the comments if you've ever been in a position like this. But yeah, there's a certain kind of effed up comfort that comes from pining for someone who doesn't want you back. Like the highs I'd get when I got something that felt like confirmation, made up for the lows of crying in my apartment stairway when I got home after a denial. Now, I can't say I've ever been crying in my apartment stairway, but I do kind of get it. Like, there is something about it. And it's definitely like a chemical reaction where you know that you like someone more than they like you. It's obvious. But there's sort of a comfort in knowing that. And like the anxiety and that sort of perilous position that you're in. And I would never want to be in that situation again. I'll just 100% say that. But being in a similar spot does kind of does bring me back and be like, okay, that was not great, but I get this. I really do. And it's so interesting that in that sort of situation, you don't just look at it logically and go, what am I doing here? This is ridiculous. Like, clearly this is not healthy. But I don't know. It's just a weird thing. Maybe you guys can also sort of sympathize or empathize with that if that's happened to you in the past. But yeah, from my personal life, I've definitely been in a spot like this where you just know that someone doesn't like you as much as you like them, but you don't walk away. If anything, you just want them even more. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this one. Let me know if you enjoyed it. And again, answer my question. Have you been in that spot before? Or have you been on the other end of it? I mean, it's harder to know if you have been on the other end of it. I don't know. Have I? Maybe. I kind of hope not, because it's a sad spot for the other person to be in. But anyway, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll catch you on the next one.